And this is Emily, one of the founders of Vanlife Conversions.
And this is Gus.
For the past 2 years, we've been designing and building bespoke van conversions using a variety of different base vehicles and layouts. And so far, no two layouts have been the same. We set up this YouTube channel to help you, the self-builders, learn from our experiences on your own van life journey.
One of the most important questions that we often get asked, and probably the first thing you'll want to overcome if you're thinking of doing your own van conversion, is what base vehicle to choose. In this video, we're going to go through our considerations that we think are important and what we tell our clients to think about when they're thinking about getting their first van.
So we specialise in off-grid van conversions, so this video will focus primarily on panel vans that we have converted in the past, namely the Mercedes Sprinter and the Dodge Promaster.
These are often also known as Citroën Relays, Peugeot Boxers and Fiat Ducatos in the UK. So we've broken it down into 3 key considerations that we think are really important when looking at different base vehicles. Now these 3 considerations all revolve around different dimensions, and we think that's a really good aspect to focus on when choosing your base van. The first thing to consider is how you'll use your van. Will you be using it in urban areas, and therefore you might prioritise things like how manoeuvrable it is, so maybe a slightly shorter van might be better so you can park it easier. Conversely, a lot of people that go into van life really want to go off the beaten track, go as rural as possible and maybe stay in your van for a lot longer, and therefore you sort of think, well, the bigger the better, right?
But be careful, because it is also important to consider the weight restrictions that come with each sized vehicle. Because although in a bigger van you will have more room for storage, the actual payload of the van might be less because the vehicle itself weighs more. And it may also be the case that the same model of van have different specifications for their weight limits. So for example, a long wheelbase Promaster may be rated at 3.3 tonnes. Another long wheelbase Promaster would be rated at 3.5 tonnes. So it's important when you're purchasing the van to look at the specification in the logbook.
Okay, so the second key consideration to think about when looking at your base vehicle is how tall you are. Now this may seem obvious, but we personally think it is really vital to be able to stand up in your van, especially if you're going to be in it for any prolonged period of time. And so generally speaking, the minimum you want to start looking at is sort of a H2 size van, and that's in relation to the Promasters. Sprinters do tend to be a bit taller anyway, so you've got a bit more room to play with. So once you've taken into account your insulation, your ceiling and your floors, roughly depending on technique, that gives you about 185 centimetres of height, which is perfect for anyone pretty much under 6 foot.
So really, if you're over 6 foot, you might want to opt for either the H3 version of the Promaster or a Mercedes Sprinter. The additional height, it won't necessarily restrict you any more in terms of manoeuvrability, because a lot of the height restriction car parks will stop you from entering if you're in a H2 vehicle, and it gains an extra 30 centimetres of living space and storage.
So the third consideration to think about is the layout you have in mind. Now a lot of people tend to get the van and then think about the layout and start planning the conversion. Now we really feel it's important to look at this the other way around and have in mind your layout when choosing your base vehicle, because some base vehicles are better suited to one layout than another. The dimensions of different makes and models of vans can have quite a big impact on how much space you have. For example, the Sprinters and Crafters are longer but narrower compared to the Promasters and Relays, which are wider but slightly shorter.
So really, what we recommend is if you are looking to have a widthways bed, then the Promaster models is a bit better suited, because you can get to around 180 centimetres of width, which is 10 centimetres longer than in a Mercedes Sprinter. But you could also recess your bed at the head and the foot to gain about an extra 10 centimetres. So really, you can get about 190 centimetres of width in a Promaster. If you're over 6 foot, we would therefore recommend a lengthways bed, and therefore a Mercedes Sprinter might be better suited for you.
So there are top 3 considerations on how to choose your base vehicle. We hope it's been helpful. Check out some of our other videos. We've got lots of van tours which shows you different layouts, particularly in both Sprinters and Promasters. And we've also got lots of tutorials online to help self-builders start their van conversion journey.
Remember to like and subscribe below.